Hello, welcome to Video Mania 2. I'm the man behind the counter, Duncan, and today I thought we'd talk about a lesser talked about fantasy film that has kind of fallen off the radar, and in some ways is underappreciated. And I'll explain my arguments for that in a minute. Also, if you like older movies, ones that have fallen off the radar or underappreciated, give Video Mania 2 a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Now, without further ado, here's the movie we're going to talk about. It is Highlander: The Final Dimension, starring Christopher Lambert, Mario Van Peebles, Mako, and Deborah Unger. She's now billed as Deborah Kara Unger, but she was just called Deborah Unger here. It's directed by Andy Morahan, who did the all-time great music video November Rain from Guns N' Roses, which has been viewed over 1 billion times. So that's something he can always hang his hat on. Now, this movie has an interesting history. The original Highlander film was released in 1986 without much fanfare, didn't do much at the box office. But it picked up a following in the home video market and on television, and picked up, pretty big following actually. A lot of people that aren't even fans of the Highlander franchise are a fan of the original Highlander film. It's an 80s fantasy classic for many people, myself included. This movie is not as good as that, but I'll explain some stuff, certain aspects I thought were better. Now, the thing is with the original Highlander film is, like I said, since it picked up a cult following, the producers thought, well, there is an audience for it. We can make some money with a sequel. So they came up with Highlander 2: The Quickening, which was throughout a lot of the lore and didn't make a lot of sense, and it was quite a mess, and it was just all over the place. There's been different cuts. I've tried to watch it a couple times. Well, I have watched a couple times, but I tried to get it, and I just couldn't. I don't think anyone else could too, either. I think among Highlander fans, it's like, we don't talk about that film. So, the producers thought, well, there's still some life in this franchise, but we're going to have to throw this one out. So we have this one, which some people call Highlander: The Apology. But also, in another aspect, the producers put together a television show starring Adrian Paul, and he plays a Klansman of Connor MacLeod. He plays Duncan MacLeod, and the TV show became a big hit and reinvigorated the franchise. It was one of the biggest TV shows in the 90s. So that kept the franchise going for many years. But this one, so this one fell through the cracks. And also, the television show and the movie universes kind of joined forces with Highlander Endgame, where Connor MacLeod and Duncan MacLeod were together on an adventure. I'll talk about that film in a future video at some point. But a good film too. So it's kind of a shame this one fell into the cracks. Now, here the story starts out. Connor MacLeod is in a cave in Japan studying under the sorcerer Nakano, played by the great Mako, who I've talked about in many of my martial arts films. So he wants to learn from him so he can be a warrior for good. And there's an evil warrior looking for him. His name's Kane, played by Mario Van Peebles, who takes an over-the-top approach here, but it really works. I mean, it's a pretty crazy character and, a good villain here for Connor MacLeod to play off of. So, that comes into play. Kane goes after Nakano. He's like, I want to take the head of the Highlander. And Nakano's like, no, you're going to have to go through me. So he takes Nakano's head, and in it, he gets the quickening. But the quickening, which is the energy that comes when you take the immortal's head, brought the cave down. So Connor MacLeod escaped, and the cave came down and trapped Kane in there for 400 years. So the hatred's just built up. And so now there's an archaeologist, Dr. Alex Johnson, who's an archaeologist and does excavations, and she goes to Japan here, and during the excavation, I guess it loosens some things up, and Kane gets out, and he's now in the 90s, and he picks up where he left off. He's looking for Connor MacLeod, and now since he took Nakano's head, he has magical powers now. He can do a lot of different things, so he's quite powerful. So he goes looking for Connor and sets him up on the inevitable clash. And Alex Johnson learns about some of the mythology, and she's very curious, and she gets caught up in this as well. And, it sets up for the inevitable clash. Now, the things I like better than the original film do I like it better than the original film overall? No. The original film is an absolute classic. but there's certain elements that I thought were stronger in this one. And the production values were a little bit stronger to me, and I like the magic and sorcery element was more present in this one, and the love interest is much stronger here, I think. So the connection here is much better, and the cinematography is better. So those aspects are better. But things that are different are things I just mentioned. It doesn't have the Queen soundtrack, unfortunately, but the musical score here isn't bad, so it's still pretty good. So overall, this movie is a fun 90s fantasy film that kind of fell through the cracks for reasons I explained. But I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. And I'm glad I have it in my collection. I watched it last week and I really enjoyed it. So any Highlander fans out there, what'd you think of this one? Any other Christopher Lambert movies you really enjoy? Let me know any of that in the comments. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.